encounters involving multiple witnesses. She reports her abduction experience, which unfolded through hypnotherapy, and discusses the responsibilities of the hypnotherapist. So over to Les.
Good luck this morning. Right, thank you, Liz. Good morning, everybody. It's an honour and pleasure to be here today. As you can see, I'm not quite with it this morning. I think I must have all this time travel. Anyway, what I'd like to discuss is quite a number of things I just wanted to touch on. Over the last 12 years, I've done a lot of travelling. I've lectured in quite a few different countries. But most of all, the experiences that I've had in my life regarding what you call UFOs, or I call them identified flying objects. But one of the, my actual experiences started back when I was a little girl on my father's farm. And at that time, that was back in, I think it was about the late 1947 or 48. And I used to always be my dad's shadow, because whenever he went out to milk the cows in the morning, I used to always be with him. And this particular morning, it was in winter, and after he'd finished milking our house cow, I was the one with the lantern, holding the lantern while he was ready to go down to breakfast. And we became very aware of this round-coloured, orangey coloured object moving across the paddocks in the distance. And so I was aware that we had to stay very, very still while this object was moving. And then eventually it took off and moved up into the sky. And my dad always said to me, well, let's go down to breakfast and we won't tell Mother that we saw the moon flying across the sky. So of course, when I look back there, that was the first encounter or experience that I've had. Now, it wasn't until I got married and I went to live in New Zealand. We were living in a little place, my husband was working for the government at the time, and we went and we were living in a place called Masters in the Wairarapa, which is about probably an hour and a half, 2 hours from Wellington. And it was on the 24th of April 1964 that I had an event took place where I was coming home from the pictures, and I driven out into a rural area, not very far from home, to let off some people. And on the way back into where we lived, I was aware of an object with a spotlight that lit up the paddock beside where I was driving. At first I thought it was a crop dusting plane, because we live in an area where the crop dusters go out quite frequently, and often they come back very late at night. But as I started to drive, I became aware that the animals were moving in all directions, and this light just lit up the whole paddock. And of course, by this time I started to get a little apprehensive, wondering what on earth it was. And then I realised when I looked out the passenger side window, this very large object that looked about 2 stories high, and it had lights just sort of flickering. But of course, I only had a roll car, and by the time I had my foot flat to the boards to get back into South Road where we lived. Now, as I turned the car, this huge object went up over the car, and then it was just cruising along just above the chimneys of the houses. And by this time I was really scared, and I was so busy looking at this, and before I knew what had happened, I'd actually finished up on the footpath heading towards the power pole. The next thing I remember, I was driving in my driveway, and when I looked in the rear vision mirror, this object was over the houses opposite, but it actually seemed to overshadow about 3 of the houses. So if you can imagine the size, because the average block of land would have been about a quarter acre. And so by the time I got inside and woke my husband, I opened the Venetian blinds on, and it's still there, and I'm saying to him, quick, I've been followed home by a UFO. Well, you can imagine his reaction. He looked at the clock and he said, it's 20 to 12, where the hell have you been? And I said, well, come get out of bed and have a look. And when he did, he got out of bed and he actually saw it, and by this time it had taken off, and it went at such fast speed, and within the minutes or seconds it was over the Tararua Ranges, which is a very large range of mountains from Wellington going up through the centre of the North Island. Now, the following morning, it was on the news about this object that had been seen from Invercargill in the South Island to the very north of the North Island in Kaitaia. And it was between 9 o'clock and midnight that it had been sighted by many, many people. So they were sort of asking people to come forward or any witnesses, but of course I didn't. Now, from then on, I had the most amazing experiences. Although I'd been very psychic and I was able to perceive things and see things that other people couldn't see all my life, I started to find that my psychic powers and my intuition just became accelerated, and I found I had a lot of trouble around electrical gadgets. I couldn't walk past a radio, I couldn't go near a television set because it would start rolling or the radio goes static. I couldn't touch anything because I'd get electric shocks. I went through quite a stressful situation there for a while, and even where I was working, I'd have trouble because it was like I was picking up all the radio waves, were picking up people's thoughts. So, this went on for quite a number of years. But the interesting thing about the whole scenario was that over the next probably about 10 years or more, I'd be woken up, go to bed early, and I'd be woken up, I'd get out of bed, and this would be probably around about after 11:30 at night. I'd get up and I'd go over and I'd open the blinds and I'd stand there, but I was always aware of this light that would come through, and it was like penetrating my brow, and it was like I was having a communication with somebody or something. Now that went on for a long time, and then I'd go back to bed and I'd look at the clock and it was always 2:20 in the morning. So of course this went on for a long time, but I also was given the message that not to sort of reveal what they told me, because later on in the years I'd be revealing or working with people. In 1974, I was diagnosed with cancer of the larynx and lungs. And of course, like anyone that has had cancer, you go through all the trauma and drama, and you lose a lot of weight, and you get very, very, very sick, and you go through the fear of anxiety of feeling that you're not going to be here to see your children grow up, because my little girl was only about 2 years of age at the time, and my other 2 children were around 14 and 12. But anyway, one night I went to bed, and I know on the Monday I was supposed to go into hospital. I'm going to start radiant treatment in Palmerston North, where they used to do a lot of work with cancer patients. But I actually had someone come to me in a dream to tell me that if I went into the hospital, I'd never come out, and they had worked for me, and they'd be directing me to someone that would give me healing. So one of the most remarkable things, when I woke up the next morning, the first thing I said to myself is, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. And so it was like a revelation, but I got in the car and I took my mother-in-law with me, and I drove to a little place called Greytown. Now, I don't know whether you've ever had an experience of somebody was driving your vehicle, but it was like a power that had taken over, and I had no idea where I was going, didn't know anything about this person. And I just drove, and I just seemed to intuitively know where I was going, and I finished up out in the rural area and drove up this driveway, and it was quite remarkable because what had happened, the things that stick in your mind at the time, all I could remember very distinctly was the gravel under the tyres of the car. As I pulled up, and I went up to this old house, and it had an extension built on the side, knocked at the door, and this gentleman opened the door, and he said, come in, I've been expecting you. So you can imagine how I felt. I thought, wow. So he said, come on in. Now, one of the things that I just want to mention, that for about 5-6 months I had no voice at all. I couldn't talk. And my husband reckons I've made up for it since. But anyway, he told me to come into this room, and I suppose it would have been a room about half the size of this one. And when I walked in, it was the most remarkable experience, because it was like peace. I had this most inner peace, and I sat there, and the energy was just so beautiful and so peaceful. And I sat there, and this gentleman walked around. He ignored me, and he went around, and there was a lot of other people there. In fact, there was a married gentleman who was a member of Parliament from Otaki who was there. He had cancer, and there were a lot of other people. There was a lady who had been taken out of hospital, and she was, terminally ill. And there was another lady there who'd been deaf from when she was 8 years of age, I learned later. And he went around and he talked to them, and this lady that was deaf, he said to her, "How are you feeling, dear?" I always remember this because she was lying on a couch next to where I was sitting, and she said, "I'm feeling wonderful." And he said, "Have you got your hearing aids in?" And she said, "No, they're in my hand." And so she had, and she was 48, and for the last 40 years she'd been absolutely deaf and never heard anyone speak without the hearing aids. And but anyway, he came to me and he stood in front of me and he said, he said the cancer's sort of travelled, and he said it's straight through the lungs, and he said, "Looks like, you've got some starting to get into the liver." And he went on talking and he said, "You realise who sent you here, don't you?" And I looked at him and I thought, what does he mean? What does he know? And he said to me, "You've been in contact with what you call UFOs for many years." And of course I just sat back in the chair and I went all stiff and I thought, "Oh my God, how does he know this?" And he said, "Look," he said, "you've been directed here," and he said, "You will be healed if you do exactly what you're told." And he said, "Now I know you're very sceptical and you're sort of not believing, but he said, when you leave here today, you will see 2 craft over this house." He said, "When you leave here, you will see them." He said, "But this is where the healing's coming from, and you'll be helped." But he said, "You have to go across this Tasman. You will eventually go back across the Tasman, where you'll be doing a lot of work in teaching and healing, and get back into the healing work that they've directed you to do." Well, when I left that day, it was exactly at 12:10. And as I went out to the car, we looked up into a very clear blue sky, sunny day, and there were 2 silver round discs in the sky, one on top of the other, but one to the left, so you could actually see. I would say it probably would even be about half a mile or even less in the sky. Well, he did say that I'd have my voice back within 8 days. Well, I got it back in 6 days. And the cancer went, and I probably within about 4 to 6 weeks, I was almost cured. I remember going back to the specialists and doctors. They sat down, wanted to know what I'd actually done and everything else, and then I had more tests and eventually proved that there was no cancer there. I was free of it. But as I said, it was a miracle. So that's where I left it. But look, from then on and through the 70s, we had a lot of sightings. We had, where we lived, I had a friend who was a helicopter pilot trainee, and she had asked me if I'd put up these helicopter pilots. Now, one of them, Alan, he was from Christchurch originally, but he worked in New Guinea. He'd been a pilot for 6 years, and he'd come over back to New Zealand because it was cheaper to get their helicopter license. Now, I had 4 of these men, plus, because I had a very large house, I also had 4 helicopter pilot trainees and also 1 aircraft engineer staying with us. And many nights we'd sit out on that back balcony and we would watch these craft flying across the sky and going into a larger, which I would assume would be a mother craft. Sometimes we'd see anything up to 15, 18 of these craft. Now, at the time, right through the 70s, there was a lot of activity in New Zealand, tremendous lot of activity. At one stage, it was reported in the paper by the Prime Minister, who was Prime Minister Muldoon, but I think we nicknamed him years before Piggy Muldoon. I can't remember what his Christian name was, but anyway, he came out and it was reported in the news that what people were actually seeing in New Zealand was a reflection of squid boats off the coast of New Zealand. So, they're amazing spotlights when they're doing their fishing in the sky so much and not in the oceans. But what we also found that many times out at a little place called Castle Point, it was a beach resort, and also at Riversdale, there'd be many times that people were swimming and these craft would come down into the sea, and then they would come out of the ocean and fly around. But look, they'd change their shape. Sometimes they'd be cigar shape, other times they'd be round disc shape. There was so many sightings that I think people became a little bit blasé about them. I'm just trying to go back and recollect on dates. On the I think it was around December of 1978, we had an interesting scenario occurred, and at the time I wasn't aware that the Air Force Base just out of Christchurch were on exercises one morning, early in the morning, about 4 o'clock. And prior to that, the radar in Christchurch, Nelson and in Wellington picked up unusual lights on their radar screens. There was a plane leaving Christchurch around about 4 for Auckland, and they were asked by one of the chaps in radar to check out some unusual lights that they kept picking up on their radar screens. Now, the Air Force, they went out and they were also aware of these lights downriver, very close to the coast on the top of the South Island, which they thought was rather unusual because it's very rocky, and thinking that these huge fishing boats were too close to the rocks. But then they saw them come up out of the rocks and from the sea and were in the sky. Now, one of the pilots who they asked to check out, and he could go off his course slightly to just check out these lights. Well, as it turned out, one of them went across his in front of the plane. So they reported back that, yes, they did see objects that were going exceptionally fast. Now, the interesting thing at the time, Quentin Fogarty was in Auckland. He'd flown over from Melbourne, and I don't know whether anyone remembers Quentin Fogarty, who was a journalist, and he was over there at the time. It was just about the time when Frederick Valentich disappeared over Bass Strait. Now, what had happened, my daughter was flying to Melbourne, and we had to get up very early in the morning to get her off because she had to leave at 8. So my husband was outside around about 4, just after 4, putting the suitcases in the car when he called me to come quickly. I went out and there's this huge ball of orange light just over our paddock, the paddock behind our house, pulsating. It was there for some time. We watched it. I wanted to climb over the fence and walk towards it, but he decided it wasn't such a good idea. Eventually it seemed to move, but then it disappeared. It just went out completely. It was like an invisible shield. It moved along the path, and then next thing it appeared again further away, and then all of a sudden it just took off like a flash of light and disappeared. Now, when we drove down, we left and we were driving down to Wellington, and as we got towards the Rumataka Hill, we also became aware of lights. Well, there were 2 lights, and then one disappeared, but one particular light just seemed to keep abreast with us until we reached the top of the summit of the hill, and then it disappeared. But at the time, I wasn't aware that there was also the activity was picked up by the Air Force and NAC, National Air Corporation, the New Zealand Airlines. And of course, the 2 of the pilots made a decision that they were going to keep this quiet and nothing was going to be said about it. So, you know, there's been quite a few scenarios. Now, the other interesting thing, on the New Year's Day of 1978, my husband and I went to a little place called Martinborough. We went down to see the old year out and New Year in. And we stayed with friends in Grey Street in Martinborough. And we slept in their lounge. And early in the morning, my little dog started barking and growling. He'd run to the door and he'd scratch and he'd come back and he'd try to get under the couch. So I got up thinking he wanted to go outside, and as I opened the door, I saw the most amazing sight. There, about 6 feet above the ground, was a silver round disc slowly moving along the street as though it was looking for somebody. Now, it was about the size of a large car, but at that stage I wasn't aware that 2 doors up, Quentin Fogarty was staying in Martinborough at the same time. So I often think I'd love to have been able to contact him and say, were you aware that they must have been looking for you? So, you know, all these scenarios that went on in my life where I became very much aware, but at the same time, my powers, my intuition, my psychic powers became very enhanced. In 1979, we shifted back to Australia, where we settled in Brisbane. Now, from then on, I'd had a number of contacts, and one of the main contacts in 94 was I started running meditation and healing, and I went back and did studies at university. And from 1967, I started getting involved in studying osteopathy. And I'd done that with a wonderful British osteopath in New Zealand for many years. And then I came back and furthered my studies, and I started a clinic in Mount Gravatt in Brisbane as a herbalist and an osteopath. And then, of course, later on I studied hypnosis. So I've been doing hypnosis since around I qualified around the mid-80s. So what I found with hypnosis, because of my abilities and being able to, and I've had so many experiences myself, I felt that I was able to hone in and help people with hypnosis in helping them with their traumas. I started a community centre in Salisbury in 1986 where we could bring people together that had unusual experiences, and regularly on a regular basis I'd have groups, UFO groups, and people would travel from all over the place. I had one lady came to see me, an elderly lady and her husband, and they had an amazing experience. They were on their way driving to Gympie. They became aware of a strange light. Their vehicle stopped. They don't remember anything else until they found they were in Stanthorpe, which is completely the opposite direction. And of course she was just totally amazed at how could she possibly have been on the Bruce Highway heading towards Gympie, and several hours later she's finished up in Stanthorpe. Now these are just some of the stories I used to hear, and you think, well, are these people having you on, or is this happening? Then when I was travelling, I was invited to go to the States to lecture, and I went to Hawaii. That was my first call. Now one of the interesting things, one of these entities that used to contact me, they told me that I'd be travelling to the States where I'd make contact with 3 very important people. And at the time I didn't know how I was going to get there because I didn't have the money, and I'd never had really had any interest in going to the States. But anyway, money came and I went. I was invited to lecture, and on the morning I was supposed to fly to Houston. My plane was cancelled, and so I had to stay another night, and I was invited when I was doing a radio show on K108, and the announcer had invited me to a UFO meeting down at one of the libraries. But unfortunately I couldn't go because I was travelling to Houston in Texas. So as it turned out, I finished up going. Now when I was there, I walked in the door, and when I was talking to him I was aware of a gentleman watching me. And he came over and he introduced himself. And he told me who he was, and he said, I've lived on the island of Kauai. Now he was a Hawaiian. And actually it turned out he was a whole kahuna. He said, I've been living on the island of Kauai for the last 4 years. He said, I've never had any intentions of coming over here, but this morning around 9 I had a message from a Andromeda Rex from the Ashtar Command to say that I had to come to Oahu, to Honolulu, to meet this woman Mackie from Australia, and it was important that we made contact. Well, you can imagine my skin just stood on end. I thought, wow, it's happening. So I spent some time with him, and then I went off to Houston. Now I was lecturing down in Houston in one of these spiritual centres, and there were about 80 people there at the time. And after I finished talking, a lady got up and said to me, she gave me her name, some strange, unusual name. She was very small, very tiny and petite, with unusually red colour hair. And she got up and she said to me, this afternoon around 4 o'clock, she said, I was busy having a meditation, and she said, I had an entity by the name of Andromeda Rex from the Ashtar Command came to me and said, I had to come along here tonight to meet this woman Mackay from Australia because you're going to be able to tell me where the pyramids are in Gympie. And I thought, wow. So that was the second communication. And then the next one was, I was back in Honolulu and I was doing a talkback show on K108, and I had several people ring in. People used to ring in about, I used to do mediumship, and we'd talk about UFOs, and I encourage people to ring in and share their experiences. And this particular evening, a lady rang and spoke to me, and she actually managed a multi-billion-dollar cosmetic empire in New York, and she had a home on Maui, and she invited her so, and she said, I'd like you to come over and stay with me. I'd like to meet you. And I said, well, as it turned out, within 2 days I was going to Maui. So I decided to go a day earlier. Now, in the meantime, the woman that I'd met in Houston, in Texas, she gave me this phone number and she said, you must contact this man. This is your next contact. So I said, oh, okay. And it turned out he lived on Maui. So I thought, well, what? As I'm going over there, I'll give him a ring. And his name was Alfredo Nero. Now, I didn't have a clue what he did or anything. So I thought, well, see, I'm going to Maui. I'll ring him and tell him I'm coming over and perhaps I could meet him. So as it turned out, he had an answering service, so I left a message to say who I was and I was coming over and if there was a possibility. And I'd given him this lady's Jackie Hill's number where I was staying. So when I got over there, she was so excited, the fact that she'd forgotten about me, come along. And then she said, look, I'm so excited. She said, I have this wonderful famous man coming tonight for dinner. She said, I've been living here for a number of years and I've been trying to, I've invited him so many times that he just didn't seem to be interested in coming. She said, all of a sudden, he's rung me and said he'll be over here at 7 o'clock tonight. Well, this gentleman did arrive, and when she opened the door to greet him, he walked straight past her, headed straight for me, put his arms around me, and he said, I'm your next contact. So it turned out his name was a dromedary. He'd been in contact with a dromedary, so I get this right, because there's so many things happening to me around that time. And his name was Alfredo Nero. Now, he was a famous artist, and he was also a kahuna. And I didn't notice, and this lady was showing me these wonderful photo paintings on walls that she paid thousands and thousands of dollars for. Now, we sat out on what he called the lanai, we called the balcony, and we were having tea, and then afterwards Jackie decided we should have a meditation. Now, as I sat there reading a medium, I finished up going into a trance. And I started talking Hawaiian, which I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And actually, I channeled his parents, different ones, through and gave him messages. And then this entity, which called himself Andromeda Rex from the Ashtar Command channel through and gave some very relevant and important information. And as I came out of trance, because I wasn't aware of what I was saying or anything, 3 craft flew over the top of us. One hovered for a moment or two and then they took off out to sea. And so that was my first real encounter and messages. Now, over the years they've come to me and they've given me dates, times, longitudes, latitudes, and say, because I've always believed I try to keep my feet firmly on the ground, and I always say, if you really exist, you guys, I want evidence. I want to see you in the flesh. I want to see what you look like. So we were directed in April of 1986, we were given the directions and that to go up into the Gulf, and they'd show themselves, and I had no idea how I was going to get there. But the long and the short of it was, we had a tourist operator who drove buses up into the Gulf, used to take people up there barramundi fishing, and he'd actually invited my husband. I'd been treating his back and treating a friend of his, and he then turned and invited my husband to go with him up into the Gulf. And I thought to myself, I wouldn't mind going. So I decided to go with them. Now, he was taking a busload of 40-odd people, but, you wouldn't believe it, but right about a week before, all of a sudden everybody started getting sick. He had one man who had to cancel his wife, went into hospital. There were 4 or 5 people went down with flu. And he finished up out of 44 people. He had about 14 people left. So he cancelled that trip and said, we'll take them on the next trip in 3 weeks from now. And then he said to me, look, I don't want to disappoint you, but he said, I want to travel up through the Gulf and have a look around and look for a new tour route to take people. I'm going to take my station wagon, would you and my husband come? So we did. Now, when we went out, it's gone as far as Cloncurry, we were aware of this huge UFO that was seen to be following us. We saw it in the clouds. Now, this man was a very down-to-earth, I don't know what you call him often, but he didn't believe in anything like what we're here talking about. And he did say to me, now look, if I didn't believe any better, he said, you could say that's one of those UFOs that all these crazies believe in. And look at that thing up there in the clouds. And after a while, big clouds covered it. Now, we went from Cloncurry up to Booterwell's Roadhouse, which is about 6.5 hours drive, and we got up there just after midnight. Now, this light followed us all the way. We had some most spectacular sightings when we were up in, when we were right up into the Gulf, travelled, I forget, many hundreds of thousands of, I think we did about 6,500 kilometres. But on the way back it was actually on the 21st of August 1997. I'm just jumping ahead a bit here. We stopped about 3 hours out of Georgetown on our way to the Atherton Tablelands. And of course, if anyone's travelled out west, you'll find a lot of the roads that aren't sealed. If anyone's travelling in front of you or behind you, you can see them for many miles because of the dust. But we stopped beside this causeway, it was a dry riverbed, to have a drink. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And within seconds, there was a four-wheel drive vehicle approached us coming across the bridge. And with 2 people dressed in like military sort of camouflage, those sort of green and white clothes, and wearing caps. And one was a male, one was a female, and as they approached us, they slowed down, smiled and nodded their head. And I remember saying to Ken, I didn't know the military were up here doing exercises. And he said, well, I've come through here for many years and I've never seen anybody. Well, within seconds, this vehicle was back in front of us, probably about 3 metres from where we were parked off the side of the road. And they both bowed to us and said, can we be of service? Now, these 2 people were extremely tall. In fact, they were very slightly stooped because their head was almost touching the roof of the four-wheel drive. And so as Ken was explaining why we were there, the female kept looking at me, and I looked at her and I thought, you're not from around here, and she shook her head, and I thought, you're reading my mind, and she nodded and smiled. And I said, are you the ones I'm supposed to meet? And she nodded. And I said, well, look, I'm going to get a little closer. In fact, I'm going to touch you to see if you really exist. Now, we were towing out a trailer with all our gear in. As I walked around the back of the trailer and went to walk towards this vehicle, towards it, everything went totally still. Even the noises in the bush, the cattle that were grazing under the trees, everything went totally still. Next thing, we're getting in our car and we're following them. We came over a slight grave and everything was very flat. And next thing, they disappeared in front of us. They were gone. Now, the interesting thing about this four-wheel drive vehicle, it didn't make a noise. Did not make a noise. When we got into Atherton Tablelands, we found that we had lost 25 minutes in time. So I actually did get to look at them. Now, these people are just like us. They're very, very tall. Their skin is a lot paler as though they've never been out into the sun. People have asked me, what did they look like? What were their hands and that like? But I didn't see them because I was attracted more to the eyes, to the face, and their hands and arms seemed to be hidden. You just didn't notice it. You're just looking at these people. They wore a cap, like a service cap, or one of those caps you wear when you go out in the sun. But it was interesting because I felt I'd seen them before. Now, going back a year earlier, I had a message one night that we had to go up. They gave me longitude, latitude, and when I got my map out, we found that it was air in North Queensland. So we decided, it was just around April, they said on the 14th of April they would show themselves, and they gave us the longitude, latitude. So there was, 5 of us decided it was getting close to Easter, we'd take off up, and because I'd never been to it. So we took off, and one of my friends, Laurel, that was with us, she'd never seen a UFO or anything like that. And when we pulled into the car, we went to go to get accommodation in a motel. My daughter came running in and said, quick, Laurel wants you outside. And so when I went out, there's these 2 discs flying across, and they weren't very high in the sky, just these 2 lights. Now, they weren't planes. They accelerated and disappeared too quickly for that. So that was her first sighting. When we got up to air, I made a contact with a friend up there, and I said to her, look, I've got a message to go out to a beach. And she said, okay, well, we'll go out after tea. So we went for a drive out to the beach. Now, there'd been a storm, and way out on the horizon was totally black, from the storm. But as we stood there were these two lights that came through the clouds, and they sat there. So our logic of mind saying, well, look, it really can't be a star, because the stars are behind the clouds. Anyway, eventually my daughter, she turned around and she said, she was standing some way away from us, and she said, look to the ground, not to the sky. And I turned and looked at her. She was about 12 and a half at the time, and she was surrounded with this brilliant blue light. It came out about 9-10 feet around. It was just absolutely brilliant light. Anyway, the following day, we went to visit some herbalist out there that I'd had acquaintance with, and he offered to take us down to Home Hill to have a look at one of these rock shops, crystal shops. And now, the message I got previously, I was told it gave the longitude and latitude, and they said Jason, Bill, etc. And I just assumed that Jason was the name of the person that I had to contact. He took me down to Home Hill, we went for a drive, and then he said, I'll take you around to Friends for afternoon tea. Now, we drove along this drive between all this high sugar cane that was growing, and as we got to an T intersection, he stopped to tell me that this was where his wife Marge went to school, this very old school. And I said, what's the name of this place? And he said, Jasonville. And I said, well, look, there's a mountain that I have to go up, but I can't find it around Brisbane. I said, I know I have to go up this mountain. And he just ignored me, because here I'm dealing with two lovely, beautiful people, but they're very strict Baptists, and they didn't believe in any of this sort of thing. And I was also very cautious on telling him too much. But when we started to drive along this road to go turn left into his friend's property, I looked to my right, and there's this mountain that I'd shown a vision of. So of course all the excitement, I just about fell out of the car door. And I said to him, look, this is a mountain I've got to go up to. What's it called? And he said, oh, that's Mount Inkerman. And I said, look, I have to get to the top of it. And he said, well, look, you're going to have a hard job, because the only way you're going to get up there if you have a four-wheel drive vehicle. Telstra's car sealed it half the way, and it's got the big radar on top. And I said, well, it's important we go there. And he said, well, look, if you'd like to leave it till tomorrow night, he said, I'll be able to take you up there in my four-wheel drive, which he did. And he took us up there at that night. We got up there, we had a 360-degree view of the whole of the area. Now, they told me at 5 to 9 that on that 13th they'd be showing themselves. Now, my friend said, oh, listen, let's have a meditation. We'll sit down here and do some relaxation. Well, our friend, he leaned against the railing. There was a railing and a platform at the top, a lookout. He was very embarrassed, so he just leaned back and us crazy sat there and did a meditation. And all of a sudden, this friend of mine from Tara, who unfortunately since passed on through cancer, she pointed to the sky and she said, if you look in that direction, you'll see three of us. And just as she said that, we'd actually seen lights earlier on down among the sugar cane, which we assumed must be lights they were growing things there. Next thing, these lights came up out of the sugar cane. They came quickly towards us, and as they went over our heads, they went from a huge bright light to a small light, and they were just surrounded in this blue radiant light. Now, three came up, and then there was another three. Altogether, there were six that flew over the top of us, and on our way down afterwards, my husband said, I wonder if there's any more of them around. And as we went to drive down the hill, another one just came up in front of us and flew over the top of us. Now, the interesting scenario of this was the following night we went down to his friend's place and we decided to have a meditation. And what happened was, we had this entity come through, and this, I'd never heard of him before, and he said his name was Adrenaline Rex from the Astro Command. And he told me that what they'd actually done, they hadn't actually come into our atmosphere, they were holograms. They were projecting this light. They were projecting. And they were telling us that, they have so many powers, what they can do. So that was just another area of, I probably could go on to the hits more, but I don't have all that much time. I think time's running out. But I'd just like to mention that in my work that I do, I was directed 3 years ago. I was told that I'd have to put on a conference to bring people together because it was important for Australia to have all these people come from overseas. So I set about on my journey with lecturing and visiting other conferences in the States and other places to bring a lot of these people together. Now, I'll just put, I just want going to quickly show you, if I can, some clouds. I've recently come back. I was over lecturing and representing Australia at a World Congress in Brazil in December. And when I was staying in San Diego, I managed to get some photos of what Bob Dean calls lenticular clouds. Now I'll just put them up on the board. First of all, I'd like to show you, this is taken from the window of my friend Dr. Mario Giraldo. This is the Andes. I think I might have it around the wrong way. This is the Andes from where we were staying. It's absolutely magnificent. Now, this particular morning, I got up to go out to do some filming and appeared over the mountains. Oh, I don't know whether I got it right. I don't know whether I've got the right one here. These cloud formations appeared. Now, they stayed there for about 3.5 to 4 hours. And they were just there. Now, at one stage there wasn't a cloud or nothing else in the sky. There's quite a few others here I've got to just like to share with you. These are cloud formations. So this one here was very interesting because this was taken by a photographer. They call them lenticular clouds. This is another one. I might have these around the wrong way. Forgive me if I have. These are taken over in the States. There's another lot. It's amazing these clouds, the formation that they show. This is some more. I'm not sure whether I've got that upside down or not, but the scenery is absolutely magnificent. This is another one. And these are, and then I've got a few others here that are just different types of UFOs that have been taken from photos over different times. A lot of these have been taken in South America. I had the pleasure when I was over there. Here's another one where there was some fighting. I'm sorry if I've got a good photo. That was when there was an air display, and I'm not sure whether that was Chile or not, but when they were taking the filming, this UFO appeared out of clouds. So there's quite of, over there at the moment there's a lot of activity going on. The night before we were ready to fly to Easter Island, where I had some wonderful experiences, and I visited all those most amazing statues. Our guests put on an evening for us. This is a little bit of trivia. We appreciate that. But he put on an evening for us and brought all the UFO groups in the San Diego to say farewell. And a few of them stayed behind to play pool. And I went off to the bathroom to clean my teeth and go to bed. The next thing he's banging on the door of the bathroom saying, Glennie, quickly, come out here. UFO, bring your camera. So I raced out first to have a look. And there's this huge craft. Now he was on the 13th floor of this building, of where his apartment. And I raced back in to get my camera, but by the time I got back, this object started to move away, and all it was then was a bright light. Now, the group, ufologists that were out there, one of them went out on the road and had a cigarette, and he actually was quite amazed because there's this UFO came slowly past. He was actually able to see all the windows, and it was 2 stories. He was actually able to see, it was so close, he was actually able to see figures in something moving inside. And Mario is a psychiatrist, and he is a psychiatrist for the Air Force. And you'll find that in San Diego and Chile, they seem to be working with him now and getting a lot of information out. But he hadn't actually seen anything as close up as that, so he was actually over the moon about seeing this UFO so close up. And it was just going very, very slowly across San Diego. And unfortunately, by the time I got my video set up on it, the light was too far away because then it started to move very, very quickly. So in New Zealand there, when I was over there for the conference, I happened to take some photos. I won't have time now to show them, but if anyone wants to have a look at them after, they're very welcome. We went to a place called the Valley of the Moon, where there's a lot of mediums, about 200 of them, sit to make communication with alien friends. And they reckon that these craft come in and out. So I organised some of the speakers that came with me that were there at the conference. I think there was Graham Birdsall and Colin Andrews and his wife. There were quite a few others from different parts, Italy, Argentina. I took a busload of them down to this place. And there were some very unusual people there, and we were very... Oh, and the other chap was Barry Shamish. And we took him into this place and talked to these through an interpreter with these people who are very, very spiritual. But anyway, one of the things, the following day, they turned up at the Legion of Goodwill where the conference was being held. There was a lady there that I was quite convinced she definitely wasn't human by any means. And I thought to myself, I'm going to take her photo. And she was sitting in front of me, and she turned around and stood up and she looked straight at me and telepathically she said to me, it won't come out. So she walked off with the gentleman that was with her, and went down towards the stage to have a look at some of the papers from one of the speakers. So I followed them down and took 2 photos. Now, as I took a photo, she dropped this blonde hair. I'll try and show you, I think my time's running out, but I've taken 2 photos, but the photo I took of her came out and all it is bright light. You can see the stage, you can see everybody sitting in the audience, but where she is an absolute bright light. And when I took the other photo, I managed to get a photo of the man that was with her, but I couldn't get her. All I got was this blonde hair. So, when the truth is out there, I believe that we're being told, or not being told all the truth about these people. I believe that they're here among us. I believe they're very intelligent. The ones that I've spoken to many times are very concerned about what's happening to our Earth. They have claimed that they're giving information to scientists that has been used in a very destructive way. That they emphasise our spirituality, how we need to come together and use the unity to save the planet. They're concerned about what's happening. I believe in South America and many places they're living amongst us, they look like us, they're very intelligent, very advanced. And I question, where did we come from? Were we prepared? Were we in experiment? They come back checking on us. There's a lot of things that we don't know that I think it's not being revealed to us. I believe we have a lot of activity here in Australia and many countries. I think we need to look in our own backyard specifically. We've got a large country. People aren't really aware of what's going on. But I had a post not long ago where I had a military policeman that came to me for therapy and adjustment. And I told him I heard about people that mostly doesn't exist as American secret base, but it's corporate. And I asked him whether he was working. He said he'd been out working at this place out west. And I said, is it quilty? Well, you can imagine all his muscles were intense. And he said, what do you know about quilty? And I said, oh, everybody's talking about quilty. Everybody knows what all these American bases are. I said, we've got about 17 or 18 of them here in Australia. Probably more now. And he sort of looked at me and I said, do you ever see any UFOs? And he went very tense again. I'm trying to do his adjustment. And I said, do you believe in them? Excuse my expression, I'll tell you what he said. He said, bloody oath I do. So I said, you've actually seen them? He said, oh yes, but he said, that's all restricted area. We don't get that close. So I said, look, I've heard people telling me they come in and out all the time, because I'm just telling you things. And he said, yes. And I said, well, because you see what happens is that everything's kept underground. Now, I've also had women that are on farms that I've spoken to that tell me they get followed for anything up to 100, 200 kilometres sometimes when they're travelling. And when they get to a certain point, these UFOs just turn and go back from where they came. So, there's a lot of things going on here. There's a lot of mystery of what's going on. There's a scientific base here where they've shifted from Hawaii, where they do geomorphia. There's a lot of things going on. And I think it's good for us to be aware that we're not alone. and we're being protected. All those little spy satellites up there that they sweep our streets every day, every 24 hours of the day. They know what's happening. In fact, I sat in a plane next to a man who works for the government, and he was over here putting these security in to protect Australia. So as a closing, I'd say I have got a lot of other things, but my time's run out. Maybe if there's any questions you want to ask me later. Regardless of what we're told, we're not alone. And if only we could live in peace and harmony, regardless of race, colour and creed, I think we're on a spiritual journey, and I feel it's a never-ending journey. And I just want to quote this: "Of the gladdest moments in human life is the departure on a distant journey into unknown lands." Anyway, thank you for listening to me.
In Alice Springs, Northern Territory. Keith was born in Sydney, but has been living in Alice Springs for the last 18 years. His interest in UFOs started around about the age of 10, but he's only become more actively involved in recent years. Keith has a particular interest in the nuts and bolts aspect of UFOs, and his talk today is UFOs over Central Australia. Keith's home patch covers 16,000 square kilometres of Central Australia, remote towns, camps and settlements. He discusses UFO reports from this vast area, inaccessible to most ufologists. So welcome, Keith Douglas.
Yeah, I'm from Alice Springs, originally from Sydney. I've been in Alice Springs for 20 years. I came across UFOs when I was 10 years old, and ever since I've been in keen interest. Just more or less the area of Alice Springs is a bit big. As you see, a bit shy of words, just so you know. Alice Springs is just there. There's been sightings as far as Timber Creek. There's a sighting there. There was a craft landed. It was actually the military cordoned it off. And there's sightings around all these spots here. Get me speech about that. There's been stories of blue discs and orange lights and white lights, grey objects, some information. And this year's 98-97 has been a very good year. There's been a few stories where after talking and then Colin Norris down south of Adelaide, appointed me as a research officer for him for Alice Springs and the general area. So I decided to do that. I've only been doing this for about 12 months, so I've been interested for years. And previously, 96, 97, I heard of a landing spot near Alice Springs, and on chasing this landing spot, I come across a lot of stories. This is what I'm doing right now. We go as far back as in Mullingar, just over here, and from this area to about Alice Springs is 15 kilometres. And then this area is what was supposed to be called a corridor. Stick to minutes. After much chasing, it's still a bit inaccessible. I've got a few kilometres of the training spot, which is out west of it more. And, yeah, sure. I started back 18 years ago. Mount Ladies, there was a gentleman out there. He was, one night he was with a bloke, and he was chasing a car. There's a place called Mount Davies, which is just northwest of South Australia. There's a blue, nice big red disc out there. Out at Mount Davies, which is just north-south of South Australia, and this is a large mountain area here called Colco, Mount Davies, Pitmiljarra, the Aboriginal settlement. And one nice quiet night, there was a big red disc went from one side of the mountain to the other side, which then lowered itself down to the Aboriginal camp and lit up the area red. Well, the local people down there say that happens all the time. They know where they come from. There's rock down there. There's a few sightings down there quite often enough. No, sure I'm not. Yeah, 10 years ago, there was two gentlemen chasing a car, and then they had to shoot at about 11 o'clock at night because they were chasing a bit of a criminal. They noticed on the right-hand side of them there's a craft following them, just above the treetops, about 70 metres. Yeah. As they drove along, the object went further along the road. The object was hovering above the road ahead of them and moved off again. Next time they saw it, it had landed on the sandhill. Two men drove within 50 metres of it. They noticed windows and general appearance. It was not familiar. They felt a bit worried, so they drove to the police station, which is at 100 Babies Town, which is west of Alton. This craft followed them, and when they arrived, the craft had moved away. Back in 96, over Alice Springs. A very good year for lights, for insurance. As you say, in 96, from about July to November, for about 2.5 months, there's every 2 to 3 months there's always lights seen over coming from east to west, and informations of anything from 1 to circles of lights, 2 rows of lights, 1 row of lights, and generally going in this direction. After about 2 months, I go over there now and see some light down knocking out the lights and things like that. And I know 2 policemen who caught a guy with their seatbelt bags. And the joke is that the lights were regular in the fields. This gentleman was wearing the seatbelt bags up here, and no one even knew it. And the seatbelt bags would not form the configuration of things that happened at the time. No one for 2.5 months or got to finish. So this one gentleman was one of the lights and just in here. And then the other side. A lot of the sightings that I see around Alice Springs are going from east to west. A lot of them are going from north to south. As far as I've gone as far as Tea Tree, which is a fair way away. assume, become the assumption that the gentleman was actually set up to make the thing look like hoax in the first place. That Honeygate wouldn't open his mouth because they want us hush hush all the time about these sort of things. And so it seems strange all along. Back in '96, well first these two cows in there, and then '96 they got this cow up here. And after it started transmitting and things like that, one night there's a disc floating in front of the cow, it seemed like the circus people, there were a bunch of veterans and everybody on both sides of the queues, and they just mucked around for a while, and then the very next morning, they looked like they got lots of money in the guys, and no reason at all they could get up the top of the hill, because usually accessible to the and I would drink it after guys and come up with something. I was sort of really reminded of mine, and after I read a few stories and that, which I kind of watched later, I come to a rough assumption of why they're chasing these things after they've been illegal. She found herself in Alice Springs, and she looked like she was splashed around and she was probably another abduction. It was disappeared. Back in 1997, UFO encounter up there. Just north of Alice Springs, about 2 kilometres away. There's a girl, Aboriginal people, so out in the country out there, a lot of Aboriginal sites and stuff, so it's not most of it's Aboriginal. And a lot of stories on it, having stuff on it is mainly from the Aboriginals. I'm lucky enough to be in well enough with them, they tell me this stuff. Then north of Detroit, there's a car full of Aboriginal girls and boys doing their thing one night, and I saw it just hovering above the road. It looked like a Christmas tree, they said, and disco lights. So they got me away and turned me on the back. And it hit itself towards Alice Springs, like, well, those things are. The difference here in Alice Springs, it's all the things are on the Ufos. There's a few lights through here. There's a few lights through these silver lights seen up in the sky around faint formations. And so every one of the big lights always stars in the sky and one in the sky work and places with silver light and the radio would work and you've got a light on the house. Just a person story. Just west of our screen, a place called Honeymoon Bay. In this place,
will just remain, needing to fall in the rain. When change past today takes me far away, driving me home again. Stop when I say well, lover and not a friend. I'm talking to the wind. Change past today takes me far away, driving me home again. Stop when I say when, lover and not a friend. Talking to the wind. Hours will just remain, needing to fall in the rain. When change clouds today takes me far away, driving me home again.